With all these problems in Power Rangers Turbo, this time around I'm turning my eyes on the rest. Why was it so difficult to use carrangers footage, the crummy use of Blue Sentureon, everything being reshot, then out of nowhere turning one of the most bare bones characters from Sentai into the most famous mystery ever done? To give credit, Turbo did try to use as many of the ideas from Carranger, one being Larigo, the MacGuffin from the Turbo movie, plus Zordon and Alpha's means of leaving Earth. I still don't get that. For 4 years, plus countless thousands they were on standby, Zordon was happy to be on Earth. Then all of a sudden, oh, Larigo's here, let's go home. Another thing that wasn't set up. Larigo had special magical powers that allowed him teleporting, sealing away evil, to opening giant portals to distant planets. He was needed to bring Divatox to her future husband. He was loosely based off Carranger's mentor character Dapu. Both were from distant planets and protected people from evil, although Dapu's powers are much more limited than Larigo's. He's a proper wizard, while Dapu is more of a guardian of car magic. Dapu's origin story is basically the same as the Magna Defender. His planet was destroyed by the Bozak bike gang. Being the last survivor, went to Earth to find people who could use the Carranger powers. The way those work, they're from a constellation of stars that represent 5 cars. It's a parody, so it's not going to make much sense. Car magic overall acts like the magic from Magi Ranger, where it comes from the user's dreams. Since PR already had Zordon, followed by Demetria, Larigo is in and out of Turbo as fast as possible, which is a major problem with this season. Remember when I said Zanetti doesn't have a counterpart in Turbo? That's not completely correct. Turbo introduced us to the new mentor, Demetria. On paper, was a cool idea. Demetria originally spoke in questions, but after a few episodes, it got annoying. It felt more like she was just ripping off Yoda. They quietly dropped that from the character, along with a second storyline. If you know Carranger, you could figure out what the writers were doing, but they ended up not bothering. Possibly one of the things dropped when they were trying to fix the failing ratings. Early on in the season, the pizza episode had Divatox lose her memory. This was the first major episode featuring her. I liked this episode. It was also done in a way to showcase Divatox isn't totally bad. And if you didn't notice, Demetria was played by Divatox's actress. That's why she had the veil over her face. During a later episode, it was found out that Demetria had a lost sister. This was never brought up again, but my theory, what was supposed to happen, they wanted to adapt the ending of Carranger. I'm going to spoil the ending, so skip to this point. Carranger's bad guys ended up turning into good guys because of exhaust, Golgoyle and Turbo. He was using them to make his space highway. He mistreated them and planned on killing all of them once they got rid of the Carrangers. One of the initial setups of this turn was the love interest between Red Racer and Zanetti. Long story short, Zanetti turned back to good and told the Carrangers the Bozak's plan. I see the Turbo writers keep the element of turning the bad guys good by revealing that Divatox was Demetria's sister, making Divatox start doubting who she is, and then setting Golgoyle up as the new bad guy, followed by Rygog and the others quitting. They turned good and they stopped Golgoyle. Turbo instead dropped the plotline, rewrote the ending so that the power chamber is destroyed, and used the villain turning good plot for Astronema, building up hype for the next season. I guess you could say some of the story was still kept. When Divatox was hit by Zordon's wave, her good version was dressed up in a similar outfit to Demetria. And I will give the writers points for trying to give a story to Divatox, unlike how they failed with Blue Sentureon. Obviously, Blue Sentureon isn't as important. Carranger didn't make a 6th Ranger, but Signalman was still a full character. What Turbo did, they cut out all his personality. I didn't have a problem they made BS a robot. It made a definitive answer to what he was. While Signalman, you have no idea. He came in to set up a future story that ends up happening during in space, but other than that, BS just pops in and out of Turbo and mostly only shows up for Zord fights. Remember when the Rangers are being baked into the giant pizza? He just randomly pops in and goes, "Gee, this is some odd giant microwave. Oh my god, it's the Rangers!" Turbo constantly cut all his footage. Signalman was in that episode. Signalman got loads of backstory, where he was from, he has a family, and even had a small arc with the kid character in Carranger. Turbo was like, nah. Oh, there's footage of him attacking the Rangers. Let's make that he was brainwashed again by Divatox. He was only really there to sell toys and when they couldn't cut him out of footage. You know you failed your character when I almost forgot he existed when he showed up in the power chamber in the last episode. They could have done almost anything with this character. Like, why wasn't he in the Robot Ranger episode? He could have come up with the idea or be the one who repaired Robot Justin. I know the writers are good at their job. Was it a money issue? Was it due to changing things in the background? Was it because a load of footage was so unusable? We'll probably never know. But why was Carranger so difficult? They worked on many other seasons. It's because Carranger was a strict parody. Every character, every plotline was a joke in some way. What it went out to do, they accomplished. Every one of the Rangers played their character much more expressive and over the top. So if you go back and watch the Carranger footage, especially Green, you can see what Turbo was trying to get around. Who are the Carrangers? They started out as just regular people who ended up working for a small auto shop called Pegasus. The shop was unique, being a basic repair shop, but it was also somewhat famous due to Naoki being an amazing car designer. Many big companies were trying to recruit him. Each of them worked in different departments. Kyosuke was the team's test driver and delivery man. Minoru was the shop's salesman, always coming up with Pegasus products and ideas. Natsumi was the chief mechanic, and Yoko was the secretary, making sure they came on budget. When it came to numbers, very anal. They all shared one aspiration, being able to afford their dream car, which conveniently all looked like the vehicles that form RV Robo. After them being roped into becoming Carrangers, they went through their various arcs of being superheroes. One thing Carranger did was keep their powers as a secret to basically everyone, not just their boss or friends, also Signalman and the bad guys. It made the show much more crazier. I did mention that the show was simplistic. The characters do go through personal arcs, but majority of the time, the characters are just helping out the city or their friends. The show doesn't delve into their backgrounds much, at most focusing on one personal negative characteristic, showing them improve, and that's really it. Take Kyosuke. None of them wanted to be Carrangers, so he blew off the team during fights just to drive one of their shop cars. He had to learn a lesson that way. Naoki got taken advantage of by the Bozak. He's very timid and polite, so he had to learn to stand up for himself. Minoru, he let being a superhero get to his head. Natsumi was known as the best mechanic, and when she screwed up, she didn't trust herself. That's all they really did. I would have liked if they had gone into their backgrounds more, but they did use everyone evenly. Everything they did was so over the top. That includes the monsters. Turbo used almost everyone, but with exceptions like Numrod, Big Burpa, and Strike. These are the only ones Turbo used a Carranger plot, but they still heavily altered them. Every single story or ability the monsters had was completely changed. The next time you rewatch Turbo, watch how little Sentai footage is used. It's basically like we're in MMPR Season 3. You'll also notice that the monster motifs have no bearing on the plot. That even happened in Carranger. They just made cool designs. Most didn't even care about bikes or cars. It wasn't a bad thing. Turbo came up with some great episodes in the second half. The Time Control one, the Halloween one, the Robot Rangers, Divatox losing her memory. None of that was in Carranger. In some ways, Turbo used the footage strangely, but then I got why it happened. Remember Divatox's brother? Well, this character was in Carranger, but he was in it very early on. They cut 90% of his footage till his last 2 episodes. Why would Turbo do this? Because they had to use the footage when the Turbo Megazord was stolen, so they introduced Havoc, his space base, and the Chromites for just that. Like what happened in Lost Galaxy, they eventually were forced to bring in Captain Mutiny. Turbo was mismashing Carranger footage all over the place. That just leaves us with the Phantom Ranger, the one positive thing that came out of this show. It's why I try to defend the writers as much as possible. I know they can write when they came up with this character. He became almost an icon, able to cloak himself, bend time, so many theories of who he is. Some people think he's Justin from the future. He saved the day countless times. So what was his character like in Carranger? Absolutely nothing. Well, that's not true. But VRV Master wasn't special. He was the one who gave them the Victrailer and the VRV Robo and taught them a few things, but he was not a main character. He was barely in the series. There was a little mystery on who he was, but they quickly answered that. Phantom Ranger was on another level. I just wish everything else was too. With Carranger being basic, they were also light on attacks and even labeling finishers. It kind of felt like PR. Some moves never got names. The guys got some personal attacks. Red Racer has his driving attack and twin cam crush. Blue had the most finishers, which was odd. His personality didn't have him do them often. Green has his famous pin-in dive. The girls didn't get any moves, but they invented the Car Navic, and they're the ones who use the Navic shot finisher the most. The team does have a group finisher called the Car Magic Attack. It's rarely used. Signalman had a few attacks. Turbo cut out one. I didn't get why. His smash beam would hit people's kneecaps and made them fall down. It basically was a stun. He also had a special attack that was like the Lightspeed Spectrum Blast, but it never got named. Pegasus Thunder has a finisher called the Pegasus Final Burning, and out of the vehicles, Naoki's Blue Vehicle and V-Police are the only ones with offensive weapons, while RV Robo has the most attacks, from the Plugnado Spark to its main sword finisher, Violent Dash Cut, which was the only attack PR name for the Turbo Megazord. I also never thought about it, but the VRV Robo doesn't have its own finisher. It does have V-Guns, but the only thing we ever see it do is the Victory Twister, which are weapons from Vic Trailer. Not even when it cross-combines, it uses RV Robo's finisher. The last attacks are from Sirender with its Signal Flash, and they didn't even bother naming the attack he does with his Siren Vulcan. Another season has come to a close. I will admit that I've opened up to Turbo more than when it first aired. I had to get away from it for a long time to give it fresh eyes. It was almost 20 years for me. I hadn't watched Turbo all the way through till the DVD set came out. I only watched episodes whenever I reviewed them. It's still not good, and nothing will make me like Elgar, but it has its moments. I think what also helped was getting to watch Carranger. I now get what was going on with the riders. In ways I felt sorry. Could Turbo have turned out good if it was given the best chance? Maybe. If they hadn't had to deal with the cast change, TJ and the others were switched over at the start, along with Justin just being a teenager, they could have edited around Carranger. It wouldn't have been perfect. Divatox and the others would have still sucked, but I don't think it would have been that hated. Next up, we enter the world of video games, Twisted Dimensions, and high school. Somehow taking all this and pulling off a Hail Mary. To be continued next video, Power Rangers in Space.